Hello and welcome to another glorious Superman Sunday. My name is Jordan. With me, as always, is Chris. How are you today, Chris?
I am doing well. It's a fun day. We're talking about superhero stuff, specifically Superman, and that's where it's at, man. That's where it's at.
Yeah, we are inching closer and closer to our conclusion of Superman Sundays. Um, we have been recording these all out of order, but this one should be dropping on June 22nd. It's actually probably the closest one we will have recorded and put up. Well, no, the tier list was pretty quick too. But uh like we already have our last Superman Sunday recorded. We're doing this one this week, and then we have another one we're recording next week. So it's been it's been a cool experience, and we're gonna be starting a recording of Fantastic Fridays. Well, I actually already started it, but the first one of those will be on June 27th, which is Fantastic Friday, number one, where me and my friend Jack will be discussing Fantastic Four 2015's atrocious movie. You can listen to us rip that to shreds on June 27th here on Soups and Sabers. And we've, I guess, figured we would start off on a really down note and then work our way up to a really good note as we head towards Fantastic Four first steps
It can
at the
only
end of
go up
July.
from there. It's
Yeah.
literally can only go up from there. So
So once that kicks off on the 27th, every single week, Fantastic Fridays, up until that release of the Fantastic Four movie. So really looking forward to that. But yeah, so today, Superman for All Seasons. This is another one of those um you know comics that were listed right from James Gunn saying, here's my inspiration. And I think they're doing like a, is it like a 3-pack that has like the inspirations of the movie or something, and it was this All-Star and Birthright, I think.
correct. Yeah, I'm
It's
pretty
like
sure that's
coming
what it
out.
was.
Yeah, it's like you can buy all three of them at once and say, great. I haven't read Birthright yet, which is probably a shock because it is Mark Waid, one of my favorite
Oh, Birthright is very good.
writers. But yeah, so we'll I'll take a look at it. If we had another week to fill in here, I would have done it. But I think we're gonna have a really fun time with our Build Your Own Superman movie that I think we will skip doing Birthright for
Right.
now. All right, so for all seasons, this is the by Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale. This is the same creative team that did The Long Halloween a couple years before this comic. This one's much shorter, only 4 issues, and it did come out. It actually did come out monthly back then, September to December of 1998, and was okay. So I guess this will be a surprise too. I only read this a couple years ago, right? Like
Uh,
if we go back to like my comic awakening, I guess you would say, like Rebirth is kind of what kicked it off, in the sense of I am one of those suckers, casuals, that it worked on when they said we're rebooting everything back to number ones. And I was like, oh, this is the time to get in. And I didn't get like issue ones, but what I started collecting was like Batman, the Tom King run on the uh, paperback, trade paperback. At this time, I was already, obviously interested in comics. I had some comics when I was a kid. I've talked about in the past, like my dad had Spider-Man, and I have those issues now, and um, I have all of those that I first read. Like he let me have them, and then there was one that was missing a cover. I've went and since got another issue of it when I found it, and now have one with a complete cover, and everything's in better shape. And then of course I had like um trying to think like I mentioned this on the Fantastic Four episode, but when Spider-Man came out, the 2002 movie, I at Walmart, they would sell like these dollar comics and they were like pocket sized and it would have like an issue in it. And they did that for like the first four, I think, of Spider-Man issues. So I had like those first four issues in a little pocket size, you know, black and white comic because it was cheaper to produce it that way. And they would sell it for like $1 or something at Walmart. And that was like at the height of the Spider-Man movies coming out. Um, so then, you know, I would be interested. I would not know where to start, and that's kind of the biggest thing for a lot of people, right? And I feel like I kind of always leaned more into reading the actual continuities. You know what I'm saying? Like I was like, "Oh, Batman Volume 1 is out." Like, Tom King's Batman Volume 1 is out. Let me get that trade paperback. I know it's a number 1. I know we can start here. When I feel like a lot of people maybe get introduced through things like this, like when I started reading comics again in like 2019, 2018, um, being introduced via The Long Halloween, um, being introduced via, uh, yeah, like pretty much like The Long Halloween, where you have like these year one, right? Like where you have these comics that are not really like part of the main continuity. They are just graphic novels that tell a story or a limited run of issues, right? And I feel like now people kind of get into this comics via this. You'll hear people tell you, "Yeah, start with Long Halloween, start with year one, start with For All
That's
Seasons,
what I do.
start with All
I was just
Star," right? Like
yeah.
that's kinda how it seemed to kick off, and that's why like I feel like it took me a while to get to this one, is because I kind of always went towards the normal runs, and it would make it confusing to start with.
Yeah, I went for when I got into this, I knew there was too much because I have a very similar story. I was consuming all this video games, movies, TV shows, and I was like, okay, I obviously like this stuff. I should get into the comics. And I started with trade paperbacks, and I was just go off the list of the best ones. So I would be starting with uh like All Star Superman, Superman for All Seasons for Superman. Like that's kind of I think I think Superman Smashes the Klan was actually the first one I read, but then it was like All Star, and then it was Superman for All Seasons. It was I with Batman. I did the same thing. I started with The Long Halloween, and then because that's like was what everyone said was the best, and then I went to year one, and just jump around like the top trades, and then I picked an entry point after all that and said, okay, I'm going to make the New 52 my entry point, which for some superheroes worked out very well. Batman New 52, great. The Bat Family, for the most part, New 52 is fantastic. Flash New 52, pretty fun. Some weird choices, but pretty fun. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's not for every superhero in the New 52, but I think the big trades, the ones that everyone knows, are such a great launching point. It's especially Superman for All Seasons has all the elements of Superman, and it doesn't confuse you because like it's all the things you kind of know that are there with Superman, Daily Planet, Smallville, all this stuff, and I think it's a great introduction to the character too. So I think it's a hell of a landing spot to start on, and I the more time goes on, the more it is my favorite.
Yeah, I mean, this is I feel like that's why, obviously I wanted to read this one anyway because it was Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale, who I really enjoyed from The Long Halloween, right? Like that
A
is
Dark Victory,
uh yeah, but more so Long Halloween just because that is like my favorite Batman comics. So, and one of my favorite
mine too.
comics of all time. So like I've only read Dark Victory once. I own it. I've read it once. I've read Long Halloween 2 or 3 times. Watched the movie, all that kind of stuff. Um, this one, of course, I'm like, oh yeah, let's dive into it because it is that same creative team. So I might have actually read this. I think I did read this after Dark Victory at this point though. So you're right. Because I didn't read like Long Halloween and Dark Victory back to back. It took me a couple years to get to Dark Victory. Just because I don't feel like people really talked that one up as much, so I kind of like had it off the radar for a bit.
I have a funny story about that. I had not really gone to my local comic book shop in Westminster, and I heard the guy that would like work the register, the guy who owns the shop, was a little difficult.
Mm-hmm.
So I was always, and it kind of plays up the stereotype of the comic book guy.
Yeah,
And
Simpsons.
yeah, so I was a little intimidated. And so he's talking to me about comics, and then I said I love The Long Halloween and I love Dark Victory. And he goes, "Yeah, Dark Victory wasn't nearly as good as Long Halloween." And I said, "Actually, I would argue that it's at the same level." And Tim Sale even said he liked his art more for Dark Victory than Long Halloween, and that was like his favorite work. And the guy was like, "Oh, nobody else would say that. Nobody would say that Dark Victory was good in comparison." And I was just like, "Okay, fine. I'll stop spending money at your shop. That's fine." So now I go to the Eldersburg one if I go to a comic book shop. But
Oh, really? You avoid it
yeah,
completely?
yeah,
That's funny though. Because like, look, I would probably agree that it's not really at the same level, but I mean, like that's like saying I don't know. It's like saying the Dark Knight is uh I don't know. Like what would be a generally held opinion that would
well,
be
that would be like someone saying Batman Begins is as good as The Dark Knight, and then somebody flipping out on them. Um,
but
to
I think
Yeah,
people would do that, right? I was
no,
kind of
we've seen it on their show, but I'm talking
yeah,
like
yeah,
general audience, like
yeah, yeah,
um, or someone would be like, "Oh, I loved a Man of Steel." I'd be like, I think Man of Steel is better than Superman 78. I think that would get people to go crazy if
right, right.
if you said that. Like, I think that could start a riot in some circles. But yeah, I just remember that. I was just like, okay. I was so because it was funny because I was so intimidated to talk about comics because I had just kind of started getting into comics.
Hmm.
So, I mean, now I really just go to the Eldersburg one if I go to a Reicherstown one. I don't know why I keep saying Eldersburg. There's one in Reicherstown that is really good, and they never say anything when you go to the register and be like, "Oh, you chose this one."
Yeah.
So I like that.
It can be intimidating joining comic. I think that's what turns people away for so long. Like, I mean,
Yep.
I just see it on Twitter too, where people are. The day we were recording this, there was like a Rolling Stone article with James Gunn, and like and he also made a post. He made a post about Hawk Girl and called her comic history confusing, which I think most people would agree with. And people were acting like that was the end of the world that he said that, and I'm like it is confusing. Like there's Kendra
Yeah.
Saunders, there's the other one that I'm blanking the name on real quick. And then
Sierra.
yes, thank you.
Yeah.
And there's uh somebody then tried to post like a reading order for these two and said it's not that complicated, and that looked complicated. And I'm like, see, that's why people
Yeah.
or like the way people act about like Tom King, or the way people act
Yeah.
about a lot of these writers and stuff. If you're just scrolling, you're like, do I even want to get into comics? But the way people are acting, most of the
One
time
thing
people
that
say no.
One thing that turns me off is when you talk about Grant Morrison, some people will act like you need a PhD to read him, and it's like
Oh
it's
yeah,
not that deep. Like he puts a lot
right,
in there,
right,
but it's not like it drives me a little crazy. I think we could be more inviting to
yes,
the comic
yeah,
book thing, and I think Superman for All Seasons to me is the most accessible comic book there is because I think it's just a human story, which really
yeah.
taps into the whole point of Superman anyway.
Exactly. Good transition. Like this is a comic that I think, uh, like you said, is very accessible. especially if you know the real basis of Superman. But I would say even if you don't know too much about him, this nails a lot. Like this nails it for me. Like I think that's why I got drawn to this one so much more than All Star. Right.
Right.
When we talk about the relationship between Clark and Lois in this, Superman and Lois, it is so much more in line with what I envision compared to All Stars
Yeah.
relationships between Superman and Lois.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna probably say a hot take. I wasn't real like in love with Tim Sale's art in The Long Halloween. I love it in this book. I think it fits
Uh,
this book so much better
all right.
than that one.
Uh, I need to decompress from what you just said, but okay. Tim Sale's
I
my
just think of
favorite
like
artist, but
I would say like his Batman's great and stuff. His Gordon is great. The one scene that always sticks out to me is like when you see all the rogues in the one room on the table. Some of those designs are absolutely wild, and I'm not in love with them. But I think this book really nails it. I mean, one, it's just like
it.
beautiful art.
Mhm.
I'll pull some pages up. Like this is the
Um,
cover for issue 1, right?
yeah, in the deluxe hardcover, they have dedications, and Tim Sale um, mentions that it's a tribute to Norman Rockwell.
Yes, yeah.
The entire point of his art is to be like that. And I think it's really, I think his line work with Superman is really awesome because I think you see the humanity in Clark. There's the softness to Clark, but he's still not this, like he's not a doughy Superman. He's not a doughy Clark. He's strong. He's country strong. And I kind of like that idea. I like the way he draws it. Plus the curl, the way he does the hair, I think is really good for Clark.
Like you said, Norman Rockwell. Like this is
Yeah.
very familiar if you're familiar with Rockwell's art and
Yep.
stuff. Like
And
this looks
I
great.
love I love the names on all the buildings and the way it's just
Yeah.
so it feels lifted. It feels like you're painting, like it feels like color, like you're you're using like beautiful colors. It's just gorgeous. It's soft. It's inviting.
Mhm. Yeah. So
Watercolors, that's the word I'm looking for.
yeah, it's like watercolor exactly. So yeah, let's dive into the story. Let's dive into the comic here as we get started. So issue 1 is entitled Spring, right? And this the way that this works, there's 4 issues, each one for each season, hence the title for all seasons. Um and each one is narrated by a different person in Clark's life. The first issue, while it takes place in Smallville, is narrated by Pa Kent, and it kind of just tells the story throughout this issue of Clark realizing that he was meant for greater things, right?
Yep.
Um, we will see he shares his abilities with Lana, um, and then he realizes he has to leave Smallville and go on to do bigger things, and that's kind of what this whole first issue is about. And there's some just absolutely great scenes. This one really sticks with me. This is who Clark is. This is
Yeah.
what it is. This panel here where after an event he says I could have done more, and then pause narration of what he said, the look in his eyes, I could have done more. Like this is something that he had done. He had made some saves. He was doing what he could, but he realizes I could have done more. And like it starts to play in Clark a bit of I have to be able to I think this is Clark's realization. Like I said, he has to go on and do bigger things. It's because he realizes if he's sitting around in Smallville without using his abilities, he's not fulfilling that potential. And that's where it keeps landing on, I could have done more.
Yeah. It's very, very Clark. And I think the issues that we have, these 4 issues, touch on a different element of what makes him Clark and the person that we know. And like, is this this is how many times have you heard a conversation between Pa Kent and Clark in like an episode of Smallville?
Yeah.
That's just like this. It's I could have done more is definitely vintage,
And, and this
vintage Clark.
panel is Clark talking to the pastor, like, what if one man could have stopped all this destruction and he didn't, right? So again, he's starting to kind of have this genesis here. This
He
sunset
ferries the weight
is,
of the world. Yep, this is my favorite panel in the whole book.
I think
Uh,
mine too. I think mine too.
well, first off, it makes me cry for like two different reasons. The first thing is it's just gorgeous, and
Hmm.
the second thing is he's asked, "Does he ever get tired of looking at that?" And no one ever have. Guess I never will. And it's just, it is just there is something about being content in life and enjoying where you are and nature around you and being in the moment. And I think when you get out of the city, when you get into nature, there is something just that connects us all to the earth. And it's just such a, I think it's so important for Clark to see this because I think it grounds him. I think it brings him back down from that conversation he was having with the pastor and feeling the guilt that he could do it all. This is what tethers him to his humanity. The moments like this with his pa and the fact that they're fleeting and you have to make the most of them. And I think you see all of that just from the position of the sun is and the color of the sky and the fact that there's some wind, the grass is kind of
Hmm.
blowing. It shows there's movement. It's not lasting, but it will always be there. And it's such a poetic dichotomy. I love this panel so much.
No, I agree. This is probably my favorite panel too, and it's the one that I highlighted because it's we just talked about All Star Superman, and there's a very similar issue, right? Um,
Yeah,
where he does have that last moment with his dad, and it's kind of like this. And I think that's one of the things that just works so well for this character. Whether Pa dies or doesn't die, like you said, being tethered to Smallville, being tethered to humans,
yeah,
um, is something that really works for me. And I think that's what we're going to see. I think we are going to see a good chunk of that in this movie
right.
coming up because I just look, I've been rewatching all of the movies, okay? And Clark isn't really tethered to stuff like this even in the Reeve films, okay? Like he's just not. Uh it's almost more like All-Star where Clark is the disguise, Superman is the true him, like true self. Like when he takes Lois back to his place in Superman 2, he's referring to the fortress, uh, you know. And even in like Superman uh 3 and 4, there's not, other than like him hanging out with Lana in Superman 3, there's not a lot of stuff that really tethers him to real people like this. Then you have in what I grew up with more mostly, right, is Lois and Clark and Smallville. And those he is much more of Clark is the real person with a mixture of Superman, right? Like
Right.
he obviously plays it up when it comes to being Clark and being bumbling, but for most of Smallville's run, this is him. Like, and we would see these conversations when he's talking with Jonathan Kent, John Snyder, like looking out at the sun, and they'd have this heart to heart at the end of the episode, or when he's stuck at a crossroads. And this kind of comes back in
Yeah.
the fourth issue, right? When he leaves at the end of issue 3 and goes back home because he's not sure how to handle this, what to do, and he goes back home for guidance. So I think this is something that is just uh really just shows what I love about Clark and Superman, and I'm hoping we get something like this. And it kind of reminds me of maybe the scene in the trailer that we get, right, where he is
Yeah.
sitting with his
Your
dad, and
choices, your
yes,
actions.
yeah.
Yeah,
So I do
100%.
think we're getting this. I do think we're getting something like this in the movie. So I'll be very pleased with that. Uh, and,
I think the movies are so afraid to miss out on the Superman stuff that
yeah,
they shortchange the Clark stuff, and I feel like James Gunn knows you have to have a balance, and I think we're gonna get that balance in this movie.
I agree. So then I guess issue one ends with this panel of him in the Superman gear, right? Like
Yep.
my mom made it for me. The very famous line
Right.
also shows up in Superman and Lois, right, with the flashback scene in the pilot and the
They could not do
episode
this
11.
scene any more justice than they did it. It's just
Yeah, yeah.
that scene in Superman and Lois and this part of the comic is just the best translation of anything I've ever seen.
Now, here's the question. Does this suit that she made also have the cellophane S that he can throw at Zod and crew in Superman 2?
Interesting questions. Now we're getting to the real meat of the real meat and potatoes
That's
of the
what we wanted to
podcast.
talk about. No, I just think it's funny that that's such a
No, no,
crazy power
yeah.
that they do.
The
And then
Superman 2 is so fun. I
yeah,
love Superman 2.
this one too, which was is this the end
Well,
of the
this is
issue?
the end of I feel
The
like
whole
they end
book,
on
right?
Folks Call Me Superman, yeah. So
Yeah, yeah. Some of these pictures are out of order, so I'm trying to figure out
right.
which ones go
Yeah.
with what.
I
But
I
book
I,
2
I
is
gotta
summer.
tell you, that's beautiful.
Yeah, book 2 is summer.
Uh,
It's got this
mhm.
great um save here too, right? With stopping this nuke, right? Whatever this is.
This
Um
reminds me so much of Smallville. It's just to me, this is that scene where he jumps up on the rocket. And,
oh yeah, yeah,
uh,
when it's gonna
yeah,
blow up Smallville.
yeah, it was literally in the intro for like 3 seasons, like this. Um, but
Well, it was a very
this
heavy
is,
special effect. They need to get their money's worth out of that, so they keep putting it in the intro.
yeah, you earned it. But dude, I love the reflection of it too in of the sky and him. Like
Yes,
it's
yeah.
just the art so wonderfully done in this, and I just it's mesmerizing, man. It really is.
So this is issue 2, which is narrated by Lois Lane in this one. It's very Metropolis based, right? Probably this one and 3 are our most Metropolis based issues here. Um, Luther has some drones that go around. They look very much like the Raptors in the new movie, right? Like green and
They do,
purple,
yeah,
armored suits. Like they look very similar to that.
yep.
And like Superman has to
And
like
they're
make this.
lazy.
Yeah, Superman has to make
Yeah,
this
yeah, yeah.
save.
Save this woman.
Let me pull up. I
They're
have
like,
like
get out
a
of the way, Superman. We're going to stop the fire. Meanwhile, there's a woman. They say everyone's evacuated. There's a woman he has to save, and he tells them, if you're going to do a job, do it right. And if she had died, I would have held
yeah,
Luther directly responsible. And um, yeah, the guardians of the city. But
yeah. These
yeah,
Raptors. Just this is one of my favorites too. Like this is a job for Superman. Him making the save in the flames. Like really cool looking visual.
yeah. This is like when Tim Sale's like, "Hey, Alex Ross, I can do that too." It's
Yeah,
it's just this is just such a godly image to me. It's just so good. The shadowing
but
here is so good.
that's most of the second issue. He makes this save right with the fire. It's like this doctor that's obsessed with him, right? Lex is going to bring her in the next issue as well. Um,
Yeah, she
the
calls him her angel.
yeah, what a kind of a weird lady. Um, let me just let me queue up the next one here. So this is fall, right? And of course,
Yeah,
this has this great meaning. Other than just the season of fall, this is kind of like the fall of Superman in this case, because he ends up kind of running with his tail between his legs back home, right? After he defeats this uh, virus that Lex has unleashed on the city. But one of my favorite panels, and something again, when we're talking about something that nails like the Superman tones and stuff, is Lex in his office, high rise, Superman outside the window, you know, wanting to confront him. These type of things are exactly,
yeah.
exactly what I'm all about. These type of confrontations. I'm
My
glad it looks
favorite
like we're
thing
getting
is,
one.
yeah, my favorite thing is he knows Lex is in on it, and he's like, "All right, Lex, if I pull you out of your office, how and bring you into the air, how long until someone comes with an antidote?"
Yes.
You
Yeah.
know, and that's such a good. First off, that's Clark not giving Lex any credit, which is warranted, and it is him thinking about the situation, and I really like it because Lex is trying to make it seem like he has no handle on it at all and break
Hmm.
down his confidence. He even says, "If I break his will, I will break him, and if I break his faith in himself." And the other great line is he says, "Some people call this autumn. I prefer to call it fall,"
Yeah.
which is just. Um, and then he gets into like a Gene Hackman thing where he says like consequences or something, but Lex Luthor is forever or something like that. Um,
Yeah.
just such a you know this this Luthor reminds me so much of Trump. It's not funny, especially in issue 2. But he's like, "I'll deal with this, Lois," and Superman's like already dealt with it, and he's like,
Hmm.
I can negotiate with anybody," and then it's like Superman's just like, "Nope, we're just gonna take this gun here, crush it. All right, situation's
Very,
over."
very unusual look for Lex in this. Like I know in some comics he's kind of got the hair and he's got red hair and all that kind of stuff, but
Yeah,
he's like a balding red hair, kind of huskier guy, right? Than what we
right.
usually see him as. So, um, kind of curious on that. That's one of the things that
Yeah,
when I pull it up and read it, I kind of was like, oh, I forget this is how Lex looks in this book.
right, right.
Um, there's this great exchange with Lois. Now this issue is of course narrated by Lex.
Right.
Um, and I love this because I wanted to bring this up. So this is Lois saying, "Well, there you go. It's kind of a mistake anybody could make." Okay, so there's this book, like this what letter or something comes in for him, and it says LL, or he's taking notes saying he needs to see
Yeah,
LL, right? And it's referring to Lana Lang, and she thinks it's for
right.
Lois Lane, right? And she says, "Kind of
Which
the
is
mistake
funny
anybody
because
could
she
make."
knows Lex Luthor.
Yeah,
She knows
you
Lex
know how
Luthor, and her name is
competitive
Lois Lane. That's 2
You know
right
how
there.
competitive you know how competitive the business is, Smallville. How many people do you know that have the initials LL? And
Yeah,
this is something
she
that has
yeah.
come up in Superman comics uh a couple times and in the fandom outside of it. But we got Lana Lang, Lois Lane, Lex Luthor. If you want to include Lionel Luthor, Lena Luthor, Lenny
If you want to
Luthor,
include, yeah, if you want to include Lutessa Luthor,
Lutessa. I mean, look, there's a lot of LLs in Superman's life, right? I saw a comic panel where Clark was questioning this, and they added Lightning Lad. It's not even his real name, but I thought that was funny.
that
Um,
is funny.
but yeah, there's a lot of LLs in his life uh, that he has. But I just think it's funny that they actually call it out in this book. It's something that they seem to kind of lean in on sometimes, right?
Yeah.
But
Um,
interesting.
I also find it interesting they got that headline that says "It flies," as if Superman is an it, which is another thing we're going to kind of explore in this movie. So that's interesting, right there.
It's another really cool one. I just
I
like
love
seeing
the
the red and
streaks.
yellow in
Yep.
the streak too. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I love it, and it's uh very speaking of Smallville, very red blue blur.
Yeah, that's
Um,
what I was thinking.
it's literally one of the like if that's what it looked like, no wonder. But
All right, let's go ahead and get ready for issue 4. So what happens is, right, like they um Luther has like this toxin out there. The woman that he saved in the fire was a doctor that is like obsessed with Superman and is working on, like, she has the antidote, right? So they spray the antidote, they make it rain, it wakes everybody back up, and uh that's when he kind of leaves and has to go back and kind of think about, um like I said, kind of with his tail between his legs on what he needs, like inspiration that he's gonna have to get here.
yeah.
And one thing that I really like too, and I'm gonna share this once I get all of them up here, maybe. Okay, I'll save it for after we're done talking about issue 4. So issue 4 is narrated by Lana Lang. Superman has left
Which
Metropolis. Lois kind of starts trying to put the pieces together when she realizes Clark is gone, Superman is gone, right? Clark hides out in Smallville. He's unsure of himself after his confrontation with Luthor. And then we get this like flood that comes, and Clark jumps in as Superman. He helps deliver some of the supplies. You know, his parents are evacuating. He's helping with that. And while Martha, Lana, and Jonathan are driving their truck, this like bridge collapse. Shelby and Jonathan fall into the river. Clark saves Jonathan. They give us a jump scare with the dog, thinking that the dog is dead.
oh my God, yeah, they
I
do
hate
that
it.
very well. It's well,
Shelby's
you have to have
alive.
some dramatic tension.
Shelby is alive, and Shelby survives on a rock. Um, Clark goes back to Metropolis. He knows he has to go back after this. He has this great line where he's flying past people and says, "Tell Luthor I'm back," you know, to the Luthor robots. So
Yeah,
just some really great stuff here. Um, and Lana, you know, lets it out to the Kents that she
yeah,
knows, right? And
yeah. I
they're
thought
kind of
this
like
was incredibly
acting.
genius.
They're kind of acting like,
Yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about, and Clark's like, she knows.
I think it was incredibly genius to have Lana be the closer because it would be like so easy to make her the narrator of the first issue, the childhood love,
Yes, yeah,
the one that got away. But really, the lingering consequences of him going out to that field, showing the powers, and letting her know the responsibility that he felt that he had when she thought he was going to propose. Um,
yeah. It's kind of the
and
opening we
then you see,
get, right? The opening in this
yeah,
issue is her narration about how she loved Clark and she thought he was going to marry her. He wants to tell her this secret. She thinks he's going to propose,
yeah.
and he lifts her up into the air instead as they fly. And she realizes, kind of like, you know, at that point, she can't kind of hold him
This is
down.
one of my favorite Lanas. This is one of my favorite Lanas. I feel like
This is
Lana
Annette
gets it.
O'Toole Lana. This is Annette O'Toole
Yeah, it
Lana from
kind of
Superman
is.
3.
Yeah.
I love it.
Well, it is. Well, it's definitely in design, but like
Yeah, yeah.
this Lana kind of understands it. This Lana, like I feel like Smallville Lana would be like, so you kept this from me this whole time? You've been lying to me forever? And like this Lana was like, oh my goodness, this changes everything, and like feels the weight of it and doesn't act selfishly. And um, it's really kind of the hardest thing she has to do is to let Clark go.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I have a lot of respect for this Lana.
And you can kind of see, I think, you know, like the whole like Lana Lang stuff from, like, I guess this is heavily based off the John Byrne Man of Steel run, and you also get like, this was one of the inspirations for Smallville, and I think you can kind of see the bones in that, where you see Pete and Lana as his childhood friends, him infatuated with Lana at first, right, and like having his secret, like all this kind of stuff. Really, you can see the bones of Smallville in it. Jeff Loeb also would go on to write some episodes of Smallville. All right, so this is what I want to share. Here we have. I didn't realize this the first time I read it. I don't know. I guess it just wasn't. It didn't jump out to me. But there are. I really wish there was 4, but there's 3 images that are mirrored pretty much throughout the issues, right? So, one, we have this in spring where he is debating. His parents are kind of talking, and it brings up this like, how could he possibly hear us, right? And it's his obviously super hearing. He can hear, so he's hearing all of this while he is just sitting there pondering and wondering what to kind of do with his life here. So I thought that was really cool image, and then it kind of comes up again in issue 2, right, where he is laying on the bed in his apartment, just kind of relaxing. He's got the Smallville banner above him, a TV, all this kind of stuff. Really small apartment. Love it. As he's eating a sandwich. And then in issue 4, because there's not one in issue 3, we get him back at the Kent house, laying in his childhood bedroom. Shelby curled up with him again. This is kind of like near, I think, the beginning of the issue when Lana's, still talking about her, standing in the field that night, telling me how I feel with all his special powers. He could help as many people as he could, and we have Clark saying, "Pa, I began to think that I could do anything and I can't." Like, this is where he's having that self-doubt, that I think is very crucial for this character. I think a lot of times people think, there's a quote by James Gunn saying that he's not going to be as powerful as like punching a planet like he's been able to do in other stuff. And I think that's good. But some people are of course, taking that badly, which I understand. There's like, I guess, every power of his is somebody's favorite power. But my favorite thing is where he is relatable the most is when he's a little bit depowered, and he can, I mean, he's also only in year 3 in the movie, and he doubts himself, right? Like, we see this in Smallville all the time. Him sitting there like, I don't know if I can do this. And this, I think, is something really cool. But I also just love how Tim Sale put these 3 panels in the same layout, and it just like different parts, different
Right.
stuff. I really like this.
Yeah, it's like he's got a definite routine when it comes to chilling in the bed. But I didn't realize the mirroring of it until you pointed it out, to be honest with you. That's a pretty cool detail. I think Shelby is a good boy, or a good girl. So I like the dog.
I'll tell you, I was so bummed I could not find a matching one of these in issue 3. But it's so focused on the
Metropolis.
On the Metropolis, and even then, it's like so focused on the disease or whatever, right?
Right.
That
there's too much going on.
There is, that it doesn't have. I was really bummed that we didn't have one in each issue.
Yeah.
But we also have this, this again. Just, he's Clark, right? Clark, you of all people should know that whether or not he wears a cape and a big red S on his chest, he's still our Clark, right? Like, they are saying to, I think, Lana at this point that he's still our Clark, when he's Superman or not. Like, this is who he is, and I think that is something that's very fundamental to my love of the character as well.
I feel like if you think Superman is boring or unrelatable, you need to read this. And if you read this and that is your takeaway, still, I don't know what to tell you. So, I think this is the antidote to that complaint about Superman that you hear too many times. Because I feel like most people just know Superman from a movie or two. And whereas, like, I feel like TV has really honed in on the Clark part of it, and that's why the TV has been so successful. I feel like the movies have been like, we have to give you every Superman thing we can give you. So you need to read this.
Yeah.
It's essential reading for Superman fans.
And then again, just like people wondered why anyone with these kind of powers and abilities, if it were true, would use them to help others and not for their own benefit. And again, this is just the clear distinction between Superman and Lex.
Yep.
Lex uses everything, his smarts, his business acumen, his money, for his own benefit, while Clark has been graced with these abilities and he is like the most powerful person on earth, but he only uses it for good. And that is what the
Yeah.
key to Superman is and why he can be so inspirational, right? Is because there is nobody in the world like this, right? Like the saying is power corrupts, right?
Yeah.
So letting us have this fantasy of this guy that does do everything for everybody else's benefit is a very strong and the fact that he is also just while not human, he is human in ways that other people are not just by caring for humanity. So,
Right. And they play with this concept throughout all four issues. I know in issue two, Lois says he's too good to be true. He surpasses Prince Charming.
right, right.
And I know that, like when he's talking about Lex, and they're saying that he makes like 150 million a second or something, and it's like this ridiculous wealth. And Clark tells Jimmy he puts his pants on one leg at a time.
Yeah.
And I think Clark's perspective on Lex, and I really like that he has such a good radar for Lex and his BS. Like I feel like most people are blind to that, and I love that Clark isn't. That I feel like Clark in this is a natural has a natural honing of who is a good person.
No, I agree. Let me remove that one. Okay. Um yeah, and then it ends with this, right?
Yep. Folks call me Superman, and I love how calls them folks. It's so
Yes.
Smallville.
Yeah, very Smallville, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh but yeah, we have this great artwork of him flying. I just really like the way he draws Superman. It's really good.
I do too. This the streaks are my favorite part of it too. It
Yeah,
really
yeah.
it's so damn good. I love this so much. I mean, this warms your heart. This is a restore faith in humanity kind of a comic. It is when you're down, you need some hope. You open this. I think what's amazing to me is Superman in this doesn't actually do anything that incredible in terms of some of his like incredible feats of Superman. It's that's not the point of the story. The point of the story is to understand the character and to understand how people see the character and how he impacts the people in his life. It's not Clark telling you the story, it's people telling you about Clark. And that to me is everything. I think it really shows because I think Clark would be blushing the whole time if he could hear all the narration.
Yeah, and originally apparently Loeb didn't intend to have a narrator, but he did not want to do the story from Superman's point of view because he
You're right.
did not feel comfortable being inside the head of an icon. So
Makes sense.
he decided to allow other characters to narrate. And I think that's one thing that's really cool about this is having the different narrators, but it still feels like we're not removed from Superman. Like, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like
Yeah.
they because it's the people very close to him except for maybe Lex, right? But since it's the people very close to him, um we get to be able to still kind of know what's going on in his head without him being Superman's point of view, mainly because of it's people he can confide in, especially when you get the Pa and Lana, right? So that really works for me. I also want to shout out the person that does the colors, which is Bjarne Hansen, a Danish art director. Their name is on the covers and stuff, but I wasn't really sure what role they had, but they do the colors. So when we're talking about those beautiful watercolors and stuff, that's Hansen
Yeah,
doing that. So I wanted to make sure to give them their due here.
absolutely. Yeah. Comic books are like one of the coolest things because it takes an artist, it takes a author, it takes a colorist, it takes an inker. I mean, it's such a collaborative medium. And there's a beauty in that. It takes a village. It really does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, uh that will be our discussion on For All Seasons. If you haven't read it and for some reason you listen to us the whole time, go and
Take
read
care
this
of that.
book
Yeah.
because we can't do it justice. It really is. And it was one of those that I read a couple years ago and I was like, "Oh yeah, this is my favorite Superman story." And largely stayed away from it until we had to reread it here and I just fell in
Yeah.
love with it all over again and I'm very
It,
happy
it
that
was
we got a
such a
chance to discuss it.
delightful Sunday morning. I read it Sunday morning.
Yeah.
It was just such a delightful read. I read the first three issues and then I was like, I'm going to take a walk. And then I read the next issue. It was right when I got back. It was just a delightful read. It's like the perfect size for like one ish sit through. It's really core central Clark Kent Superman ideas, and
I think it
that's
was
really
I did one a night, I think.
okay.
Yeah, I guess I started. Maybe you did issues 1 and 2 in one night, but like I usually kind of kept one for. Yeah, I finished it yesterday, so I did one like every night or something like that to. And it allowed me to kind of reflect on it,
Right.
after
You get to sit
each
with it a little.
issue, get to sit with it a bit. I mean, maybe I was able to like look forward to it again because I think the first time I read it, I did just breeze through it, and that's why
Yeah.
like this time I noticed like those three images of him on the bed because I was like, oh, I read them in like a day apart. And I'm like, oh, this looks very
Yeah.
familiar. It's that same shot, And
Mhm.
when I breezed through it the first time, I think I was like, I just want to get to the end and see
All
how
right.
this goes, and
This
just kind of blew through it.
yeah. This is the first time I've read it since after watching Smallville. And the Shelby thing, I was like, oh, Shelby, okay, that's where they got the name. Like that's
Yeah,
cool.
that is
Um,
cool.
I wonder if Jeff Loeb has a dog named Shelby.
I don't know.
I, I,
I
I
don't know if I don't know if Shelby appears in other older comics or anything, but I don't know.
no, I don't know. I wonder if it's a Jeff Loeb thing, like if it's like his dog,
Might be.
kind of like Ozu.
Yeah, it might be. Um,
Ozu
all right.
before Ozu.
So thank you all for watching and listening to our Superman for All Seasons. Again, like I said, check it out. Or if you haven't read it in a while, go check it
Yeah,
out
it's
because
worth
it
it.
it is
You
worth
always forget
revisiting.
how good it is, how
Yeah.
pure it is. Yeah,
So again, I'm just going to go over the game plan for how we're doing this going forward. So next week is our Build Your Own Superman movie where we'll have a special guest. We're going to like take the way that we did it with Build Your Own Batman, if people remember that. But it's kind of like, take your favorite Clark or take your favorite Superman, take your favorite Lois through all the interpretations, take your favorite Lana or take your favorite Jimmy Olsen, your favorite Lex, and like we're just gonna kind of pick that favorite Daily Planet set, favorite Fortress set, and kind of do stuff like that to be like, how are we like if you're making your own movie from all of the iterations, if you were like, oh, I really love the Lex in this, but I really love the Lois in this, why can't they all be in one thing? That's what we're doing. Just kind of picking and choosing our favorites from all of the iterations of Superman characters. Um, so that's what we'll be doing. So that'll be a lot of fun. Then we have the following Superman Sunday, our our final Superman Sunday leading into the movie, which is our final wish list for the movie. We actually already recorded it because things were starting to come out out the wazoo. So I wanted to make sure we kind of got some of that stuff out there before we could really tell if this stuff was going to happen. And then we will have Chris is going on the Tuesday night showing the fan event. He'll have a spoiler-free reaction that will be available late Tuesday, early Wednesday, sometime around there. Then Thursday, Ron and Chris will be doing the usual out-of-theater reaction. And then we'll release, hopefully, if everything works out right, we'll be releasing our Superman full spoiler review on Superman Sunday, July 13th, just to kind of keep in with the theme. Also, every Fantastic Friday is going to start on June 27th with our Fantastic Four 2015 atrocity discussion that we are going to have there. And then after that, we're going to be discussing Life Story, which is a comic that I think has some very possible things I want to shout out for where the movie's going with it as well, I think. And then, we'll be doing a couple other things leading up to Fantastic Four First Steps at the end of July. So that's what we got going on here. Ironheart, we're probably just going to do one episode discussing all 6 episodes after its 2-week release, just because of everything that's on our plate right now. So if you're looking for Ironheart coverage, probably a full season wrap up after the 2-3 episode drops that they're planning to do. But yeah, so that's what we got coming at you this month and next month. Thank you all for watching and listening along. We'll catch you next time.